Hi everyone, welcome back to Bab Nines. So there's an interesting quote that came out from Paqueta off the back of the Arsenal game. We're going to cover it in this show, and hopefully this is a suggestion that there is going to be a mentality change from here throughout to the end of the season. So yeah, guys, stay tuned, and we'll be discussing the quotes from Paqueta. So, as we all know, we managed to get a draw against Arsenal, coming back from 2 goals down with an impressive display from our squad. And there was a really interesting quote that came out from Paqueta with ESPN Brazil. And what we do is we'll get into it now and we'll kind of talk through as to what that could maybe mean for the rest of the season, the implications that it could have. And yeah, so let's kind of get into it. So, speaking with ESPN Brazil, he said, yeah, I think it's been hurting us a little bit in response to obviously not playing very well. It's not the first time that we start the game and already concede one, sometimes 2 goals, which makes it very difficult for us. It changes our whole plan, our whole strategy. But then, very calmly, when the goal came, we managed to put in our style of play, put pressure on Arsenal, and managed to tie the match. We also had the chance to make a comeback. Yes, it was an open game, but I believe it was a very important point. I think that after our goal, it gave us a little more confidence to press high, make their defenders give the ball away. So I think this change in attitude came through our goal. It gave us confidence, and we started to realize on the pitch, hey, we can press, we can steal the ball, and we can mark. So that's what we did. I think there are probably many ways in which you can read that. I think some will look at that as the players taking responsibility. They are maybe looking to remove the shackles of what has been primarily a pragmatic approach throughout games and to sit tight and to hold space and not to press as much, not to try and man mark, and to be maybe a little bit more passive. Now, some people will look at it as that's the players taking command. They're actually now maybe going away from the tactics. Another way to look at it is that they are now maybe Moyes is actually asking them to be a bit more proactive, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more in the face of the opponent. And they're finally starting to trust those level of tactics. Now, none of us are going to know which side of that argument it is. So whether it's the players actually saying to hell with what we've been told, this is what we want to do. We're gonna play in this more positive way, so that we are not in a position like we were against Arsenal. And if we play that way, we can challenge any team, as we proved against Arsenal. Obviously, the other way is that it's simply that they're now starting to trust Moyes. But ultimately, whatever the reason is, and whatever the reason is behind that change in mentality, that all of a sudden dropping off the penny, it can only be a good thing. Because if we play in that way, if the players take the initiative on the pitch, as kind of Paqueta's point, we realise that all of a sudden we can press a team. And we know Arsenal plays some exceptional football, but there's that realisation that we can press a team that is incredibly comfortable with the ball. We're actually able to start to mark them. We're able to put pressure and to cause errors and cause problems. Now, if that's the mentality we're going to take into the end of the season, then we could have a very interesting end. We could see far more positive results than we do negative. It can only bode well in Europe, because you would have to, I guess, concede, or you'd have to kind of look at it as we are the strongest team in Europe. Not only do we have the largest budget, we arguably have the best players. We certainly have, out of all of those teams, we're probably the only team in Europa Conference that has a world-class player. And we do have a world-class player in Declan Rice. So you have to then start to think that if this mentality is what the players have, where they're now looking to press and be more aggressive, then we are not going to be the team that's been so passive throughout the season. And one of those things that could actually change from the change of mentality to be maybe more attack minded, and that's not just attack minded in terms of playing offensively. I mean attack minded also from a defensive point of view, to actually looking to be aggressive, challenge the opposition, get in their faces, and actually give them less time on the ball. Now, if we do that, one of the things we haven't done all season is we've been very poor in the opening 15 minutes when it comes to goals scored. I believe we've not even scored in the first 15 minutes or so of a game this season. That is something we do need to eradicate, because getting an early start is something that's going to get the fans going. As we saw in the Arsenal game, the fans gave everything to those players, and those players responded as well. Now, if we can play in this much more positive way, you're going to see the crowd be a lot more positive, a bit more infused. There's going to be more energy because there's more energy on the pitch. And that kind of translates really well with each other, because both fans and players feed off of one another. And if the players are negative, they are, pragmatic, or they are just slow, then the crowd are also going to reflect that. As much as we want to be different, it's sometimes it's human nature. You want to see something, you want to have excitement, you want to have something to cheer about, and it's not always easy for that self-motivation. And we're talking about a mass self-motivation in which to chant and cheer and so on. So you sometimes need to have something or someone to do something. Now, if Moyes is now setting up to be more proactive, he did state before the Arsenal game that he was setting us up to win. Now, based on Paqueta's point of they went 2 goals down and then they opened up, they became more relaxed. They actually then essentially went arguably to hell with it. They knew they weren't in a strong position, they were likely to lose, and they just decided, let's go for it. Now, again, depending on what side of the argument you are, one side is going to say that's purely down to the players stepping up to the plate and doing something for the fans. The other side of my argument is that the penny's finally dropped as to what Moyes wants them to do, or what Moyes wanted them to do in the last few games. It's now finally clicked as to how we are meant to press, how we are meant to hold our shape at the right times, how we're then meant to attack as a team. Obviously, our counter-attack or our transitional play was far better, both offensively and defensively in the game against Arsenal. So let's hope that what Paqueta is saying is now that the players have had a realization of that they actually can play. They know how to defend. They know how to now counter press. They know how to challenge and restrict space. And they can do that together collectively over a vast period of the game, because we did press Arsenal for a vast majority. And let's just hope that that positivity that has come out of that Arsenal game is something that's now going to drive those players to be more adventurous, to take risks on the ball, to actively challenge and chase, hassle and harry the opposition, not to give them easy possession. And that's all easy to say, and you can obviously go against that and say, well, West Ham only had 28% possession against Arsenal. But it's where Arsenal had that possession. In and around the area, we pressured, we allowed them or pushed them into certain areas that we wanted them to be, such as into the flanks. And we also pressured them higher up the pitch, and we won the ball a lot more in the opposition half, far more than we have throughout the season. So whilst we only had that 28% possession, you also then have to look at other factors, such as we had 16 shots. That's 5 more shots than Arsenal. We had about 7 to 8 corners, which I believe is about 4 or 5 more corners than Arsenal had. Now, Arsenal had the ball so much, yet West Ham were probably the most threatening in attack, also probably had the greater opportunities in terms of almost clearer cut chances. And it showed a team that was, in essence, far more clinical, far more positive in the final third, and probably a bit more decisive. And I think that's something that we have to be. We have to be more decisive. We have to get players forwards and flood the area. And this is something we've not done all season. So I'm hoping that Paqueta's words is a prelude to something that's going to come over the next few games, where we are going to start seeing players get forward far more regular. There's going to be a lot more intent in how we play. And if that Arsenal game's anything to go by, I think it's fair to say the penny is finally dropped as to we need to start performing as a team, as a unit, as a collective. Now, whether that's because Moyes has adapted and changed and suited their play, or whether that's the players taking responsibility and doing things on their own. Ultimately, the ends justify the means. But the most important thing is that those words from Paqueta show there was a change in mindset in those players, a realization that they are good players and they are a good team when they operate and function as a team rather than a collective of individuals sporadically turning up within games. So here's to hoping that the Arsenal game is the catalyst for a strong end to the season, a change in mentality and a positive mindset from those players. And we go into the final running in the Premier League with renewed vigour and confidence in how we play, and that we also go into our games within the Europa Conference as well with real intent and a belief that we can actually win, and to really take that, I guess, the mantle of being the favourites and take it to heart and actually thrive under that pressure rather than kind of buckle as we probably saw last season. But yeah, that's it. It's a nice short one today. I'm very hopeful for the end of the season. The Arsenal game gave a great deal of pride and also optimism in how West Ham play. And if Paqueta's words are to be read into, or if they are to be kind of a collective view from the players, then there's obviously now an understanding within them that they can press teams, they can cause the opposition errors, and they can be far more proactive and active in games and get a positive result. So until next time, guys, all we can say is, come on, you Irons.